taking that first step. Like, step out of your comfort zone and just ask somebody, hey, this is what I want to do with my life. Can you help me get there?
Hey, welcome back to the Known Disciple Project podcast. So excited to dive into what we think is one of the most important topics today for Christian disciples, people who are following Christ and not just passively doing so. So, got Justin with me today. Justin, we're going to do a quick intro here in a second, but dude, it is pouring outside right now.
And it is. As soon as we started, the clouds definitely opened up. But we need the rain, so it's a blessing.
True thing. Maybe we're doing something hard today, hoping our internet doesn't go out while we're
Yeah,
recording this.
yeah, no doubt.
All
No
right. So,
doubt.
in case you are new to the podcast or to the Known Disciple Project, my name is Mark. We started this project with the thought that we want to help disciples of Jesus be fully devoted followers. And not only that, but this is for those of you who are truly personal growth focused too. Like, you're building something with your life, you're stepping into leadership in your life, maybe your business, in your community, in your family. If you have anything in you that says there's more that I could do for the kingdom or for the people around me, this entire podcast is for you. And so, me personally, I am a life, faith, and business coach. I spend all my time talking to people who want to do what I was just talking about. They want to level up, they want to give back, they want to follow Jesus, and they want to do it to the service of others as well. And so, with that, we started this podcast with you in mind. And Justin is jumping into this with me now. This is our second time recording. Very excited about that. And Justin, your turn, man. Just a quick intro.
Yeah, I'm Justin, former military, former fireman in the city of Lubbock, and then jumped into the business world. Now in a small financial services and insurance business down here in the Houston area now. And my passion is to see men just reach limits that I think they strive to reach, and to help them reach those limits through just a multitude of different types of things, and all faith-based. And just watching men grow as husbands and fathers and men of faith is where my passion is.
Well, let's dive right in, because I think this is a really important topic. And I think it's going to hit home for a lot of men who are listening to this, who, again, they just kind of have that thing in their heart and in their mind that says, I could be something more than I am right now. Like, I could show up a little better, maybe in my faith, or I could show up better as a man in my marriage, for my kids, as a leader at work, community, wherever it is that you show up. But let's paint the picture first. I'm curious from your perspective, Justin, kind of what you're seeing in the men around you or in society, maybe when it comes to challenge, discipline, doing hard things, and really the things that we would say grow men.
I think men, like, they want this, right? They may not say it out loud, but after having conversations with just a ton of different men, they miss that spark. They miss that challenge of doing difficult things. And I think they want it. And I think a lot of men are misled and not really knowing where to start and how to get to where they want to be, right? Because it's a comfort issue, and all of us have experienced that. I mean, I know I have in my life where it's really, really easy to get comfortable. And comfortable is not always the right path for us. But just talking to different men throughout our city, and guys that I know all across the United States, man, there's just something that's burning inside them to tap back into that discipline that most men have had at some point in their life.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely seeing a lot of that. And what I see in coaching and when I'm talking to men is there's almost a passive appreciation for discomfort, that is, for challenge
Yeah.
and for growth, but they're not necessarily willing to reach out and make themselves uncomfortable. And it's one of the most difficult things that I help people work through is, like, why would you choose something challenging if life is comfortable already? Even if you do have that little nagging thing that says you could show it better, like, why would you choose discomfort over comfort?
Yeah, I agree. And for me personally, I kind of live by the mantra that things are going to happen to you in life at some point, that are going to be uncomfortable. And if you're not training your mind to, to step up to that challenge when things do get uncomfortable, I mean, neurologically, you forget how to do it. And so I'm constantly trying to find things to put me out of my comfort zone so that if something does happen later on in my life, I know that I can rely on that strength and the discipline that I've built because I've done things that are uncomfortable on purpose. And I know that my mind is wired that way to, in whatever situation to be able to say, hey, this is going to be difficult or it's going to be uncomfortable, but you've done uncomfortable and you've done difficult before. And so I'm constantly trying to regenerate that muscle in my mind to be able to take on that challenge, whatever the challenge is.
It's a must. I think it's an actual must. You must take on challenging things on purpose. But how do you convince somebody that that's a good thing? That's what I always circle back to because I see it and I know you see it too, the
Right.
benefit of doing hard things, to choosing discipline in your life. But to somebody who's going, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of fine right now, even though I know I could do more or be more. How would you even begin to address that?
I think it really, Mark, it depends on who you're talking to. If we're talking to men who are in the church or faith based or believers, I think we're called to do more. And so you can shame them a little bit. No, I'm just playing. You don't want to shame them. I think it's okay to call people out. Everybody has these unbelievable gifts and talents. And if it's going to help, just society and as a whole or the church as a whole, I think it's okay to hold each other accountable and say, hey, Mark, and you are gifted in so many ways, but I think you're getting a little bit comfortable. Let's test that. So that way, you can reach other people, reach lost people, and bring them into the kingdom.
It makes me think of, I think it's James 4, chapter 4, right toward the end. I can picture it in my Bible where it talks about confessing your sins to one another. And not only that, but like the other side of that would be accountability, just like you said. Talk about doing a challenging thing. Like, when's the last time most men could say that they walked into a circle of like minded men and just without prompting said, guys, here's where I'm messing up. I need some accountability around this.
Oh my goodness. Man, that's such a difficult thing to do in our society today. It's difficult to even find a group that allows you to be that vulnerable and open, but it's so rewarding to have guys like that because all of us are going through some kind of crap at some point in our life, right? And to be able to walk into a room with a group of guys that you trust and say, hey man, this is where I'm struggling. It's invaluable, Mark. It really is. And it's life changing, to be honest with you.
Do you think if more men had that, that then they would spur one another on to do more challenging things?
I think so, because I think all of us as men inherently, we compare ourselves to each other a little bit, right? In like a competitive sense, not in a bad way. But, if you're benching 225 for 10 reps, then there's going to be this little thought in my head. I wonder how many reps I can do, right? And that's going to motivate me. And it's not a negative thing, but, um, it's going to challenge me and push me forward. Or if you've been in the word every morning for the last 6 weeks and you call me out on it and I say, man, I've been in the word once in the last 7 days, right? Just seeing your consistency is going to challenge me as well to do things like even get in the word or whatever it is that grows my faith.
Dude, this is one of those things that I think current trends, not even current, really just for the last few decades, trends in personal development have been just beating to death the idea that you should be around like-minded people if you want to level up, right? So for
Yeah.
example, the really common thing to say is your top 5. The 5 people you spend the most time around, you're going to end up becoming just like those people, or the average rather of those people. And so it's so important to understand, I think, that that's true. Like we
Yeah.
see it, it's true. It actually does work that way, but that's not new information. Like
No.
that's as old as Genesis. That's as old as, even Jesus and the disciples being around each other, spurring one another on to good works. And man, I'll tell you what, jumping into God's word, just since you brought that up, jumping into the word and spending frequent time in it is way easier when you're around people who are spending frequent time in the word,
Yeah.
because all of us suffer from out of sight, out of mind. No matter how important our goals are, if something is out of sight, out of mind, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
But when people are around you doing the things that you want to be doing, it's right in your face, man.
Yeah. And it holds you accountable too. Like I have a men's group that I meet with every Friday morning. And we usually go through a book, just, whatever kind of book. Like right now we're going through the Screw Tape Letters. And if I wasn't in that group, there's a pretty good chance I wouldn't be reading whatever book we're going through, right? I may. but it holds me accountable to, to read that. And then we have just unbelievable discussions about whatever book we're reading. And it's the same thing with being in the word as well, which I honestly, I struggle with a little bit because I don't have someone that's accountable, that holds me accountable to being in the word. Like that kind of falls on the discipline and consistency that I have to force on myself, because I don't have Mark Hummel calling me every morning and saying, "Hey, we're going through, the book of James right now. What did you get out of this?" So yeah, I mean, holding each other accountable and just helping each other level up in a group setting, man, it's invaluable for sure.
Why don't more men do it? That's the question. I think most men would say, like, that makes total sense. But where do I find a group like that? Or how do I do it? Or I don't feel like it is something we fight against a lot too.
I think it's stepping out of your comfort zone, right? Like the men's group that I go to on Friday mornings, it started with me and one other person. And the only reason that me and that other person started meeting together is because I had to ask him. I had to get out of my comfort zone and say, "Hey, what do you got going on at 6 a.m. on a Friday morning?" And he's like, nothing. All right. Do you want to just start meeting? And he's like, yeah. And that's grown. And now the coffee shop where we meet at, and it's so beautiful. There's, I don't know, every Friday morning, there's probably 30 men just meeting in a coffee shop and discussing, whatever the word or whatever book they're reading through, just separate groups. But I think it's just taking that first step, like step out of your comfort zone and just ask somebody, "Hey, this is what I want to do with my life. Can you help me get there?"
Man, that's a life-changing thing. If you're listening to this and you want to take something away, take away that right there, which is you've got to step out of your comfort zone and just ask somebody to help you get somewhere. And I can tell you from personal experience, all the cool things I've been able to do in my life have been because I got help from somebody or because I was surrounded by a group of people who were rooting for me.
Right.
I can truly say all the times I've failed, it's because I was isolated or I didn't have people around me spurring me on to go the right direction and make wise decisions. And I couldn't stress more that point. Even if you don't know where you want to go, find somebody or a group of somebodies that could help you figure that out. Especially, I think, if you're a disciple, if you're a Christian man listening to this, like, we're called to that. We cannot be isolated because we are more vulnerable, isolated than anything else.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened to me this morning and I kind of chickened out, and I'm feeling convicted about it. There's an older gentleman at the gym. I mean, he's got to be mid 60s and he's in phenomenal shape. And I see him every single morning. And when I say he's in phenomenal shape, like he's one of the fittest guys in the gym. And so today when I was working out, I was like, man, I'm going to go talk to him and just ask him, why do you do the things you do? Like, what is your ambition of being in such good shape at your age? And I kind of chickened out this morning, but it is on my list to do, and I will ask him. But I'm guessing that fear of me asking him, like he would probably appreciate me asking him about it.
I bet he
And for
would.
some reason, yeah, and for some reason, I was afraid to get out of my comfort zone and just walk up to this guy at the gym that I see every single morning and say, "Hey, dude, how do you stay in such good shape at 60, 65 years old?" And I chickened out, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
When you do it, I'm going to hold you to this, man. When you do it, we got to come back and talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, we can for sure. But I think that's it though, Mark. I think you say you want to be around people to help you level up. Well, this is a guy at a level that I want to be at when I'm that age. And the only way I can gain knowledge from this gentleman is to go up and talk to him. And so whether it's your walk or your marriage or anything that you want to level up, if you see somebody that's doing it the right way, man, step out of that comfort zone and go talk to them, start a conversation, because they want to see you level up as well, right? Like
The
they're
right people do.
yeah, the right people.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard pressed to find somebody that's just going to shrug you off and say, "Hey, this guy's asking for help, and let's push him to the side." Most people that are in that circle, they want to help other people get to where they are.
That's a weird thing. You just triggered a new thought here, but that's a weird thing that we walk around thinking that that's what's going to happen. All this anxiety we have about approaching somebody and saying, "Hey,
Yeah,
could you help me?"
right.
Like they're going to turn around and smack you.
Yeah, I know, right? Just embarrass you.
Yeah, which, like, how
No, I'm not going to. No,
I guess you're just not going to be fit at 65 years old if you can't
right.
figure it out.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm not going to help you, man. Do it on your own, which is not going to happen, right?
Right. And even if it does, man, like, you're not going to die. Like, maybe you have a little moment where somebody puts you in your place for a second and you go, oh, I guess he's not my person, and go find
Right.
somebody else. That's happened to me before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Many times I've gone up to somebody that I thought I could respect and said, hey, I'd really like to learn a lot from you. And then underneath the hood, like they weren't worth following, or perhaps they didn't see something in me worth teaching to. And so, man, this isn't something that I think is going to work right away every time, but it's a mindset where you walk around with the idea that I can't be isolated, can't be alone. I need to be around people and learning from people. And so you're kind of always looking for that person. And man, when you have that frame of mind, opportunities for like what you're talking about pop up all over the place because
Yeah,
that's how you're thinking. You're looking for it.
absolutely. And no matter what what aspect of life you're trying to find, whether it's your faith or your fitness or business or career or family, there are so many opportunities to meet people that'll help you along the way. And for some reason, we're just shy away from it. I mean, we just do. I can think of a handful of times, in my marriage that I knew people had gone through a lot of the things that my wife and I had gone through. And there's just like this inherent fear to ask them, hey, how did you overcome this? Or what did you do in this situation? And you just try to figure it out yourself, which doesn't always work very well.
Well, you know what that does? So there's actually a whole thing we teach about this and in the coaching that I do, and I'll throw it out there for anybody that it would be helpful for. When we experience a problem, like in our marriage or in our business, if you're an entrepreneur or wherever you show up, really, when you experience a problem, what happens is we instantly believe we can come up with a solution and we apply our own creativity to it. But the research is very clear on this. When people start with their own creative solutions to a problem, oftentimes it can go well, but most of the time, the vast majority of the time, it's now just a game of trial and error. Oops, that
Yeah.
didn't work. Oops, that didn't work. Oops, that didn't work, until you finally arrive at something, hopefully, that works. But there's a better way. And the better way is to find somebody or some model that has already been proven to work and accelerate yourself through all that trial and error. Case in point, marriage works like that. When you're around people who are nailing it in their marriage and you go talk to them, you're like, I've seen this happen so many times in the minds of men who are struggling in their marriage. That one thing, that one mindset flip that I know you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, Justin, because you've seen this in men too. That one flip from it's all about me to it's all about them
But
will move mountains in a marriage.
uh,
And men just don't think like that, right? They're problem solvers. And so they're always thinking, well, here's how I would solve, rather than, well, what do they actually need me to do? And dude, we could talk forever about that specific piece. We probably need to do an episode on just marriage in general,
oh man,
doing hard
yeah,
things in your marriage. Let's throw some scripture at this thing we're talking about today, running to win, discipline, self-control, choosing to do hard things as a man. And
yeah,
so I'll throw one out just as a
yeah,
starter. One of my favorites is James 1, 2 through 4.
okay,
Count it all as pure joy when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness or endurance, depending on your translation. And off the top, man, like what does that verse say to you? And what would we say to the men who are listening to us talk about it?
just right off the top, it means to never get complacent and to always, to always be training in some aspect, and that's not just necessarily physical training, but spiritual training, sharpening your mind, just always being prepared. Because I think we forget that we have an adversary, that he's waiting for us to just get comfortable so that he can attack. And if it's in that comfort that when he attacks, you're just not prepared for it. And so constantly training, constantly sharpening your blade, constantly just striving. I think that's what he's kind of getting at. And I mean, just continually training your mind and your body and your spirit, just because the adversary is going to attack at some point.
That makes a lot of
How
sense to
about
me,
you?
man.
What's it mean to you?
Well, I definitely would add to what you're saying that it reminds me to be on the lookout for the test. And like we don't accidentally get tested, or we don't purposefully even get tested, but testing and trials are happening to us all the time. And if we're looking through that lens, then I think it's a good reminder that we need to be prepared to show up well in a trial or in a test. And so on the other side of that, what we're seeing in society is people walking around like everything is safe, everything is comfortable, everything like nothing is going to challenge you. And if it does, it's like you're wrong, it's wrong, whatever it is. But the reality is that testing and trials are part of the journey, any journey
Yeah.
that you're on. And if you're looking for the test, then what happens is you're better able to take advantage of what the test is supposed to do, which is produce deeper faith, endurance, higher capacity to do challenging things. So that's what it means to me, man. Among many other things, is like be on the lookout for the test. Be aware of what's truly happening around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Love it.
Cool. All right, let's throw one more in. So I've got Romans 5:3-5. This is the ESV version, by the way. And so, kind of a paraphrase version of it. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And sort of that chain of thought, suffering to endurance to character to hope.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
man. I mean, Mark, you know me pretty well. I've had a lot of things happen to me in my life for some reason that have challenged me, and I mean, I guess you could say that I've had some things that would be defined as suffering, to the point where like I kind of anticipate things now, which is it's not a great thing, but it's taught me that in suffering, which is going to happen at some point in our lives, if we can build that endurance and ultimately that character to get to hope, there's so many things that people can see through that. And they can see, hey, Mark is going through something right now. Let's watch how he handles this. Because that's the ultimate definition of character, right? Like you're in a spot in your life that is extremely difficult. Let's see how you respond. Let's see what your character is made of. And that brings so many people so much hope when they see, anyone overcome some kind of suffering through their character. And that impacts more people than we realize. Like I can think of, just struggling with personally, there was a time period where I struggled with addiction, and knowing that people were watching me go through that, knowing that they were seeing how I was handling it, and then knowing how they see me afterwards, it's impacted so many people. That time period of suffering was in a way a blessing, because it allowed me to find out what my character was made of. And then ultimately, man, it gave so many people so much hope because they were able to see the outcome and where I'm at now in my life.
Dude, I'm gonna ask you here in a few minutes, what are some hard things you've been doing or working on? But first, let's go into this verse a little more, because I know you've been doing some hard stuff, and it's going to be a good conversation to talk about that. I was reading the Old Testament. I'm going through the Old Testament right now, and so just went through this, First and Second Samuel's, Kings, Chronicles, kind of going through that path right now. And one of the things that stuck out to me, I actually just talked about this at my men's group here at my house last night.
Okay.
One of the patterns is that when the kings, the judges and the kings and all those people who were leading the Israelites in the Old Testament, when they were in prosperous times, when things were peaceful,
Right.
they almost immediately would go chase idols. They would start to do things that were described as basically abhorrent to God, right? And they would fall away, and and God would let them ruin all the good things that they had. And this pattern would go like that. Things are great, they fall away from God. And then because they fall away from God, things get bad. They suffer. And then guess what? Through their suffering, they cry out to God, they turn back,
Right.
and then and then everything turns around and God accepts them back, and rinse and repeat pattern repeats. But what stuck out to me is how common it is for people to fall away when things are good, but
Yeah.
how incredibly rare it is for people to praise and to seek deeper relationship with Jesus when things are good. And so imagine what the story would have been like if instead of suffering produces all these things, it's like you can actually skip the suffering part and just go straight to living a life of worship and staying oriented toward God. Now, don't get me wrong, that's easy to talk about. That's very hard to do. But yeah, when I look at this verse, I think, man, thank the good Lord that He has put this formula in place for us. Suffering brings us back to Him, rather than we can get stuck there and just be alone for the rest of the trial.
I think the church has done a bad job of when people are introduced to Christ. I think they have this impression that life is going to get easier, right?
Yep. Yep.
Our pastor every Sunday says something along the lines of in Christ is the greatest decision you'll ever make, but it's the hardest one to live out. And I truly appreciate him saying that every single week because there's so much truth in that, right? I mean, everybody would be a believer if things were perfect the moment that you accept Christ, right? I mean, everybody would be like, I'm going to accept Christ and my life is just going to be sunshine and roses for eternity. And yeah, the formula just doesn't work that way at all.
Not a bit, man. But that's a. I mean, we could spend the probably 3 podcasts on this, but that wasn't the original intent. Like even all the
Yeah.
way back in Genesis in the garden, all the good things we're talking about, discipline, hard work, doing challenging things, those were still present. Yeah, go work the garden, be fruitful, conquer the world, right? All that stuff. It was all the suffering and the pain introduced because of sin in the world. And man, my mind constantly goes back to that is the passiveness that we see in men these days oftentimes comes because of their suffering in some lane of their life. They don't know what to do about it. They're not sure how to level up in a certain area or to improve something. And so they just kind of stay in the suffering rather than lean into it and use it as a way to point themselves back toward God and improve as a man.
Um, I mean, that kind of goes back to there is comfort in suffering, right?
Mm.
Like there is because it allows you to play the victim card, which is extremely comfortable. If you're going through something, if you're suffering through a season of life for a while, being able to say or being able to lean on, well, Justin is acting this way because he's suffering something right now. And so you can find yourself where you're comfortable in that suffering. And that's a pretty dangerous place to be because at some point, you're going to have to make a decision whether to continue your life for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years just suffering, or you're going to have to make a decision and say, hey, it's time to level up. It's time to get out of this pit that I'm in of suffering. That kind of goes back to being around like-minded men that'll you know help you grow in that aspect of your life to get out of that suffering because there's so much joy and biblically it talks about hope. There's so much joy and hope outside of that suffering.
Right, man. Here comes the question, Justin. I know
What you
what's
got?
going on in your life. I'm excited to hear more about it and for other people to hear about it too. But what are some of the challenging things you're up to right now in your life?
Oh man, I'll preface this by saying that I and I do count it as a blessing to have been presented with some pretty tough obstacles to overcome in life. And I've been blindsided by some of them at times. And so years ago, I told myself that I would never be in a situation where something was difficult and have to question whether I had the ability to overcome it. And so I've taught myself that I am going to continually do hard things. So that way, when hard things come into my life, I can reach back and say, I mean, this is going to be hard, but I've done hard things before. And so I kind of microdose adversity into my life all the time. So recently, um, I did a 50-mile ruck in Austin. That was pretty difficult,
That
and it
sounds
was
very
something.
micro dosy.
Yeah, yeah, that wasn't much of a micro dose. That was a full freaking dose right there. Yeah, that was full dose, but yeah, that got me. That was funny. But yeah, that wasn't a microdose, but it was part of a bigger plan. And so my backstory a little bit is with the military and being a first responder. That's kind of where my heart is with a lot of the things that I do. I feel like that's where God is leading me. And so I'm doing a last man standing ruck in September with the ambition of raising money for an organization that I'm a part of. And in order to do that, because I plan on going 24 hours or more on this ruck, in order to do that, I knew that this 50-mile ruck, it started at 9 p.m. in Austin, and that I would be up for an extended period of time. And that ended up taking 18 and a half hours. So I wanted to challenge myself mentally to see how I'd react physically for being up for that stretch of time. So yeah, that was the latest hard thing that I did. But you know what? You know what was cool out of that, and it just hit me the other day. Um, because that sounds pretty self-centered about, hey, this is something I did for myself. That night after the ruck, so I'd been up from 5 a.m. Friday morning, finished the ruck at like 3:30 Saturday afternoon. And then I was with my brother-in-law and my wife, and they wanted to watch a movie Saturday night. And I had all the excuses in the world to say, guys, I'm tapping out. Like, I've been up since 5 a.m. Friday. It is now 7 p.m. on a Saturday. I'm going to bed. And they would have understood. But I didn't. I watched the movie with them. And my wife like was so appreciative of me just spending that time with her and her brother for those extra 2 hours of just staying up, not complaining about being tired. Man, it was probably the bigger victory after completing, the 50-mile ruck. I'm just seeing her face saying, man, he kind of just sucked it up for another few hours just to spend quality time with me. And that was hard. I mean, laying on the couch watching a movie at 9 o'clock at night after being up for 40 hours. But it was awesome. Like, it was super awesome. So yeah, that's the latest hard thing that I've done.
Yeah, that's pretty hardcore, dude. And
Yeah, it was fun.
one thing I know after spending so much time in the coaching world is that sometimes people will hear that and they'll think, well, I'm never going to do that. Like, I'm never going to be able to do something that hard. And so, what I want to try to do, if it's okay, is maybe pick a couple of lessons out of there that people can use. And so, as you were preparing yourself to do this, to do hard things, I know you live that lifestyle, but maybe just isolating it to this, as you were preparing your mind for that, what are just some small things that stuck out to you that maybe other men could take away and do in their life?
I think that a lot of people see the end result and they focus on the end result, but they don't see where it started, right?
That's
And
good.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't able to wake up one morning and, throw 40 pounds on my back and do a 50-mile ruck. It started with one step. Actually, it started before that. I had to buy a ruck. And so I bought the ruck. And the first time I put weight in it and took a lap around the neighborhood, I actually texted a guy and I said, dude, my shoulders are screaming. How do you get through this? And I'd only done like a mile. And he just said, it'll get better and it'll get better. And so the next day I threw the ruck on and, went a mile. Next day, mile and a half, etc. To the point where, the 51-mile ruck, I say 51, it actually was 51 because I got lost at the end. And added another mile just because I like to to beat myself up a little bit. Also did get lost. Um, Man, it started with one step, right? And so how do you want to get better spiritually? How do you want to get better in your marriage? And just take that first step. And what does that look like? Maybe it's asking your wife to go on a date. Maybe it's reading James. But I think we focus on the end result. Like, we just see, hey, Justin just did a 50-mile ruck, which is great. And it was hard. I'm proud of it. But it literally started with one step, like throwing the weight on and just forcing myself to get outside and do it.
One step. I heard it put like this once: if you're going to do a hard thing in your life, the first thing to do is to make the steps that you've got to take so humiliatingly small that you will take them.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And that tracks over. I don't like to get into the comparison game when we talk about doing hard things, because something that's hard for me may be really easy for you, and something that's hard for you may be really easy for me. And we can't get in that comparison. And it doesn't have to be something physical, right? I mean, it could be a ton of different things. It could be waking up 5 minutes earlier is super hard for you, but you're able to do that just by taking one little step. Just getting in that comparison game is something that we've got to avoid. And then knowing that your passion, what you want to do that is difficult or hard, it can be something that I completely think it's easy, and vice versa.
Man, this reminds me of a talk that I haven't thought about this talk in a long time, but it was a keynote session I gave once, and I was trying to think of some parallels, some things that would be fun to talk about from the stage, and I came up with this idea called living life at the margins. And Justin, I'm a nerd, dude. And when I thought margins, I was thinking managerial economics, like
Okay.
the
Yeah,
last
that's
unit, the last productive unit before you are no longer profitable is the
yeah.
margin. And I
You're
tied that.
definitely nerding out there.
And so I walked this entire crowd of people, there's a few hundred people, walked them through this talk that they didn't know was managerial economics. But the whole idea is that you can push yourself and push yourself and push yourself. But if you go too far, you're going to reach a point of diminishing returns. And so one of the best things to do is to know where that line is. So that as you choose to do hard things, what you're really doing is getting to that margin and then living there for a while. And what that does is it builds capacity to keep going.
Love it.
What you can't do is just shoot way past it, right? Just overcommit to something super hard you've never done before without first building capacity to do that thing. And so I love your point. For some people, doing something hard might be very, very simple in their life right now. And that's okay. Not only is it
Yeah.
okay, but it's needed. Like, do it. Don't neglect it. And then for other people, they might be so good at doing hard things right now that nothing feels challenging. For you, you've got to find something challenging. Like
Yeah.
you cannot slip into comfort.
You can't. And for a long time, just maturing in this space, I thought that that always meant something physical. And I was kind of set straight by someone, I mean, who doesn't work out. I mean, he kind of does, right? And I would see him and I would think, man, he's not that disciplined. And because in my head, he had to be in the gym, he had to be doing all these things and eating right and all this other stuff. And I kind of judged him for a little bit. I'm like, man, this guy's just not that disciplined because he's not doing the things the way that I do things. And then I took a deep dive into his spiritual life. And the dude is so consistent spiritually that, like, I strive for that discipline in that aspect of my life, right? And so both of us are extremely disciplined people. We just do it a different way. And and it changed my perspective on, like, we don't have to do things the exact same way whenever we do something difficult or hard. So I think you're nailing it there. And I love that word capacity. I've kind of been meditating and chewing on that word for the last couple of weeks. You kind of nailed it with the 50 miler. I wasn't 100% prepared for it, and if you're not 100% prepared for jumping into something like that, um, there's a pretty high probability that you're going to get injured, and that happened to me. I was probably prepared for about 35 miles, and but pushed through, and now my ankles are still giving me problems. So pushing through that now and learning the lesson, especially for this last man, because I don't know how many miles I'll go. It's super important that I train harder and longer to get ready for that thing. So yeah, I love it, Mark.
Dude, that the same is true in your spiritual life. And
Yeah.
I think we'll end on this point here for today. We'll spend just a couple minutes on this because I think it's probably more important than anything we've talked about so far is that we've got to build capacity in our spiritual life as well. And if we're not consistently challenging ourselves to run that race, to stay focused and to orient ourselves toward God, follow Jesus, develop our skills and use them in the service of others, then we're not doing what we were put on this earth to do as men, which is to show up as leaders and point people toward the Father. And so, Justin, what's a final point when it comes to leveling up spiritually? Like, how would a guy start if they were thinking, maybe like you said earlier, I haven't read my Bible in this long, or maybe it's in the corner collecting dust somewhere. Where does somebody start with all of that?
I think the first thing that people got to do, if you're comfortable with it, reach out to somebody and say, "Hey, man, this is an area of my life that I want to improve on, and I would really like for you to hold me accountable in it." And I don't know what that looks like for everybody, but reach out to someone that you trust and say, "Hey, Mark, I need to get better in this area of my life and spiritually, and this is my plan. Can you hold me accountable?" And if you don't have somebody like that that you trust, just start small. We've talked about that a couple of times now. There was a time in my life spiritually where I just could not get in the word. I just couldn't. I was just super lazy, was unfocused. And I reached out to a pastor friend of mine and said, "Man, I am struggling so bad to get into the word." And this guy knows me. He knows that, I know the word really well. And he said, "Man, go back to the basics." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Just read a proverb a day. Pick a month with 31 days and read a proverb a day." And I had to, like, swallow my pride to do that a little bit. I was like, "Man, that's something you tell, like, a new believer." Uh, But I did, and he said, "Man, just read a proverb a day." And so during that season of my life, that's what I did. I don't remember what month it was. Woke up that morning, I read a proverb. It took 3 minutes. The next morning I did it. And then that led me back into the routine and consistency of diving deeper into the word. So I would just say that take that first step. Reach out to somebody if you know somebody that you can trust to hold you accountable. And if you don't have that person in your life, just start small. Just take that first step.
That's so good, man. And it is always about the basics. We try to make things so complex, man, but it is always about the basics. And the basics are endurance and discipline and self control. And these are all New Testament scripture concepts that we are called to lean into. So I love that. That's a beautiful point. I'm going to tie a
I'll
bow
throw.
on it.
Well, I'm going to throw this out there because you
Yeah,
you
do it.
mentioned self control, and it, it occurred to me. I mean, recently, that's a fruit of the spirit. It's not something that we should take lightly. So I've kind of been chewing on that this week, just that word self control, because we always talk about the fruits of the spirits in Galatian, and we kind of skip that one because it's uncomfortable, right? Like there's a cupcake right now on my counter. And after this podcast is done, I'm going to have to make a decision. Am I going to eat that cupcake or I'm going to walk past it? And that kind of boils down to self control, which is super powerful because it is a fruit of the spirit. And we can't take those fruits lightly. So sorry to got a sidebar there.
No, that's it, man. And that's actually what I was going to say too. Something similar as we wrap today is James 4:7. It's submit yourself to the Lord and resist the devil. Those two things, two separate commands. And so if you're starting in your faith journey, or maybe you need to restart in your faith journey, or maybe in another area of your life, you're looking to level up, build capacity, to be better prepared to do challenging things in life, remember that it starts with submitting yourself to the Lord and then working on resisting the devil. We cannot do it in reverse order.
No,
And
can't.
so, man, get into prayer and make that one of the most consistent things that you do, even if it's just a few minutes a day. And then the word, and then other people. And don't necessarily have to do it in that order, like I'm saying it, but those three things are critical for all development, I think.
Love it. Love it, man.
Awesome. Justin, this was fun, brother. We'll do it
Yeah, I
again
enjoyed it. Yeah, I
soon.
look forward to
And
it.
we're just getting started with this project, man. Like we're creating a movement here because we want to see disciples of Jesus step out of passivity and become leaders in their families, in their communities, in their churches, and anywhere that God has called them to show up. So thanks for being on with me, man.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, man. Thank you.